Hey guys, Scott and Ivo here, the Gate Geeks, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the business of orthotic therapy. And what we have is a short little video we're going to show you that kind of highlights the things you can do with orthotics and how you can really start to implement it into your program. And then later we'll follow up with, what it really takes to get started in this whole process. So, Ivo, do you have anything you want to say before we get going with this intro video?
The video is excerpted from a course that we did in October, which is a comprehensive course pretty much about how to analyze gait, how to analyze feet, how to cast orthotics, how to dispense them, and how to modify them and correct problems with them. So it's part of a 2-day comprehensive course that we're putting together. So this is excerpted from that, and we'll meet you on the other side. Kind of talking through some things conceptually, then we can start sticking people on the treadmill looking at them. Then after that, we got a quick running gait one and what the differences are kind of between the two.
Knee flexion to me, again, I wanted somewhere in the 30s, so it's going to say about 150, ideally. She's at 160, so she's got 20 degrees of flexion.
The calcaneocuboid locking mechanism is basically where the pronator longus comes down. The lateral aspect here curves around the tail of the fifth, comes down and under, so it goes right through this little groove that's in the cuboid. How nice that that's there, right? And attaches to the head of the first. So when it contracts, it everts the cuboid. When you evert the cuboid, you push the tarsal bones closer together, and it helps to lock the lateral column of the foot, which helps us create supination, which helps us create a rigid lever, which helps us to be able to move forward. Okay, so I just re-inked. We just swapped out paper because we don't want to blow through exam sheets. So this time all I'm going to do is just show you. So now Jenna's going to be about a foot away, okay? And she's going to take a step on. We're just going to do right foot, and then we'll do something different with the left foot. True. There you go. And she's going to take a step or two. Perfect. We see we have an impression of her foot, of what's going on. Orthotics are shank-dependent devices. They need to sit flat. So one of the things you're going to see is somebody's got an orthotic, and the back of the orthotic isn't flat, it's rounded. The top sheet, which is this part here, comes in different thicknesses and durometers. So standard is 35 to 37 durometers, so it's got some flex to it. This arch support should be under the sustentaculum tali. Okay, so on our calcaneus, there's a little tiny shelf, okay, that comes up that the talus sits on. It's right here. Now we're going to go to the grinder. So what I want to do, this post is supposed to push them from outside to inside. So I'm going to grind this part under the big toe down to 0. I'm going to bevel it up. I'm going to leave this pretty full on the outside. Take off this little nubby here. I'm going to grind the front down so the edge is feathered, so they're not falling off a cliff when they're walking on this, because they'll feel the fold. So I'm going to turn the grinder on here. It's going to be a little noisy when we're doing it. We got a cam overhead so you'll be able to see what's going on. I like to grind my entry point into the front, so I take the front of the orthotic, bend it back, and I'm just going to come in probably on a 45-degree angle to start, and I'm just going to feather back and forth until I've got an edge that's much smoother there, and then I'm going to grind in the other direction in just a second. I'm going to take a little bit off the back side, and then just a little bit on the front. You want a little bit of entry here where the little toe is, so you don't want this to be too abrupt of an angle. So I can just come up with the grinder, make that edge just a little smoother. You'll catch the EVA. It's not going to hurt it, especially if you're going to cap it. And there's our 4-foot valgus post.
So there you have it, guys. Just a little bit of a couple of minutes of video of what we did in our course, and some of the things you may learn if you take our course either in person or online. So anything you want to add to that, Ivo?
It's about 8.5 hours of material.
Mm-hmm.
And that was excerpted out of a bunch of things over 2 days. There's a bunch of bonus material on it, such as how to use RunStride and a couple other softwares that we use in the offices. And we kind of go to the soup to nuts about it. We're going to have a little discussion here just sort of about the business of orthotics. But this is a great way to help people out to add income to your business and to be able to do a better job with folks in general. The program, as we're designing it now, is hybridized, so half of it will be online, which can be done anytime, anywhere, any place. The second part, which is a 1 day, very long day, 10-hour day, of basically going through posting, grinding, experiencing it. So you're actually doing it. So it's all hands-on. The way we did it over 2 days is we kind of did the didactic material 1 day and the grinding and stuff on the second day. We're just making it more convenient for people, so people don't have to take an entire weekend off and that kind of stuff to do that.
Right. We talked about, like Ivo said, some running. We talked some shoe selection there as well as part of the course. So, like we said, it's a soup to nuts, everything you need to know about how to get started. Really, how to take almost like an advanced approach to orthotics. What we're going to talk about now a little bit is really what you need to get your feet wet and kind of get your foot in the door. Pardon the pun. To kind of start implementing orthotic therapy into your practice, and why you may or may not want to start doing it. And if I speak for Ivo here, I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't want to add it into your practice. There's a lot of benefits to utilizing orthotic therapy as a tool to assist your patients in all aspects of their care. There's so many things that orthotic therapy can be beneficial for. And again, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. But orthotics can be one of those tools that you have in your toolbox to most efficiently and effectively treat the patient in front of you. And again, we're not saying orthotic therapy is the only way to treat patients. It is a good adjunct to the holistic approach to deal with these type of some of the pathologies that we talked about in the course, and some of the things we could even mention here today. So, Ivo, first, let's start with how long you've been doing orthotic therapy in your clinic.
I started in orthotics when I moved to Colorado in it would have been probably right around 97.
Okay.
98. I had pedorthists that worked in the office that I was in, and had a couple tough cases that just, I could get them about 85% better. I couldn't get them better than that. And these guys were able to do some things with their feet, which got them to 100%. And I was like, I have no idea what you did, but I need to learn this. And that sort of began my journey way back then. So we've been doing orthotic therapy for that long. And we say therapy because the orthotics should be changing, just like the person's mechanics should be changing. If they're exercising, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, then they should be getting better. And if they're getting better, then they need less correction. So you should be constantly pulling correction out or changing the amount of correction that's in the device that the patient has. The whole idea is you're helping them to have mechanics that they either don't have or can't have at the moment. If they have a rigid deformity, sometimes you have to make up for that and they'll have to continue to wear the orthotic. If they have a soft deformity, a lot of times that can be fixed with exercise and rehab, and they just need some time and a little bit of help. Think about some days, if you wear the wrong shoes, to work, you feel pretty good at the beginning of the day, but by the end of the day, your feet are killing you, your back's killing you, and everything else is hurting. If you had just a little bit more support because your arches are collapsing, your tibias and femurs are internally rotating, your pelvis is nutating forward, and you're compressing your facet joints in your lumbar spine, you wouldn't have that low back pain. So it's just, it's another tool, like Scott was saying, that we can use, and it can help people get better faster, and it can also help them get out of pain faster and help to restore function faster. The important thing is it's not a set and forget. It's not like you do it, it's like, all right, see you later. It's something that you should constantly be checking on. And even with people that are, better, you're checking on them a couple times a year. We like to do 3-4 times a year where they're coming in, checking it. We're making the device work. You're making it better. Sometimes their script's going to change. Their mechanics will change. Sometimes they've had a surgery, that kind of stuff. That's all going to make the big difference there. And then the more you know up front, as far as about the analysis, about the fab process, about how to make modifications, then the less mistakes you're going to have during the casting process and that kind of stuff, and therefore your return rate or issues you're going to have with the orthotics will be minimal. So one thing you don't want is extra work. We all have lots of work already, and you really don't need another job fixing orthotics. But if you do it right the first time, it can be a really nice stream of income for your office, depending upon what you charge
Mhm.
and what you do. We use a small custom lab to do most of our work. It's actually, I was partners in this lab, and we sucked as business partners, but we're good clinical partners.
Mhm.
So he took over my portion of the lab while we were doing that, and it's worked out phenomenally. You can manufacture orthotics in the office, and Scott, I know, was doing this for a while, and I'm sure he'll talk about that in a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
It's a
Mhm.
messy, dirty job, and it's not something that I want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I like Ivo said, my journey from in orthotic therapy started a little bit different than Ivo's. I was in a sports medicine clinic, looking to specialize in an area that most people in the clinic were not, which was foot and ankle. So I tried to create my own niche, and trying to learn everything I could about the foot and ankle and running mechanics, because I felt like that was a key component of it. I said, well, a lot of these people are coming into the office with these orthotics from, you know, name the person that made them. 5, 10 people in the community were kind of coming in with different brands and different people making them. And I said, I want to learn about that. I want to learn why that is and how that works and why they're charging so much in some of these other places. Was really one of the things that got me really kind of motivated to kind of learn more about it. So I did get my pedorthic training as well. And I started in the clinic with just some customization of some over the counter things. And then we moved into a new clinic. And when we did, I was able to be fortunate enough to have them purchase some equipment to get me going with a lab. So I had a fume hood, I had a grinder in my lab, a fume hood, I had a heat press, a heat gun. I had the whole soup to nuts ready to go. And I made orthotics from a rectangular piece of foam and turned it into a full customized device. I did foam impression casting in the clinic, poured the plaster, waited 24 hours, came in the next day, cleaned the plaster off, sanded it down, made my additions to it, molded the material to it. It was a good, hour and a half, 2 hour process to make an orthotic. And I soon got wiser and decided to be more efficient with my time and started to implement more of a lab based approach. But I think what it did was, when people start businesses, they always talk about, making sure you know every aspect of the business. If you're going to oversee the business, it's good to know how to do everything in the business. So if somebody's not doing what they should, you as the owner or the manager will know that. And I feel like my time spent making orthotics made me that much better at understanding kind of the process and some of the pitfalls and some of the things struggles that I had. So when I talk to my lab now, I'm able to really kind of troubleshoot some of the things that I see in the clinic and maybe some of the things that he's doing with some of the devices I ask him to fabricate. So um, like I said, I started making orthotics in about 2004 is when my journey really began. So I've been doing it almost 20 years now too. And it's really, really shifted my practice. I'd almost say that I think you're doing your patients a disservice. I'm going to stand on my soapbox here now and say I think you're almost doing your patients a disservice if you do not utilize foot orthotic therapy in your practice, especially obviously in the lower extremity cases, because like Ivo said, it helps speed up recovery. It is a tool. It allows you to get to some things quicker, a lot quicker. You'll see a lot quicker gains versus that of say of strengthening protocol, because strength takes several weeks to really see the results of, whereas orthotic therapy can be pretty much instantaneous oftentimes. And it is important to know that there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. Ivo and I may see the same foot and we may kind of go at it a little bit differently, whether it be different materials or different ideas that we have to control certain aspects of the foot, and that's okay. But as long as we have a hypothesis in mind as to what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it, and then that's the whole therapy thing, where you're always modifying, you're changing, you're adjusting, you're seeing how the patient is responding, and that's the fun part of it for me.
It's definitely fun. I modified numerous orthotics because that was a lot of fun when I was first getting into this. And after about a year, that was enough of that. And I decided that I really didn't want to have to modify things. And you'll make mistakes and you'll do things wrong. And that's how you learn,
Sure.
as far as, um, you know, getting through the entire process. But boy, I can't tell you how much it expedites the recovery of so many things that are going on. You'll just be able to do so much more. And just as far as seeing pretty immediate effects, and Scott says, pretty immediate. Um, I mean, instantaneous. Take a person that, say, you're going to put an orthotic in, stand them on one foot, and have them balance with their eyes open and eyes closed. Then just place the orthotic that you manufactured for them underneath their foot on that side, have them stand on one leg with their eyes closed again, and look at the difference in their balance, coordination, and proprioceptive input. It's stunning as
Hmm.
far as what you can see. So it is literally instantaneous a lot of
Hmm.
times, not always, but a lot of times it is. Of course, there's pitfalls, there's issues, and things like that, and we cover a lot of that in the seminar. We have an entire lecture for, I don't know, close to an hour talking about problems with orthotics. And we see lots of other people's orthotics, just like I'm sure you do in your clinic, Scott, where
Hmm.
they come in and it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. This doesn't do the trick. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've seen with met pads that were in upside down or wrong or whatever that just, or they were in the wrong spot. Simple things like that. Or the shell's a little bit too long and they're getting all this bite under the first met and they got a big blister there. And all you do is shave the shell back a little bit. So just knowing how to deal with those problems as they arise, and they'll arise in your clinic if you choose to go down this road. They're not huge problems. And once you kind of learn from other people's errors like ours, it should make that process that much smoother for you.
Yeah. So I think let's start with, if you don't want to necessarily get involved with the actual grinding and molding and heating, how can you, or how would you recommend people, start down the journey of orthotic therapy? What is the easiest point of entry into orthotics?
So you have orthotics and you have footbeds. Orthotics generally change the mechanical function of the foot and are a prescription device, whereas a footbed is a non-prescription device that can either do the same or creates a level surface for the foot. So with an orthotic, it's pretty much always going to be custom. It's always going to be molded. You can either do the molding process in your office through some sort of casting, whether that's slipper casting with plaster, a foam box, or some sort of a pressure sensor plate that people are standing on, which I'm not really wild about, but we won't go into that in too much detail here.
Hmm.
You can also
Or
do
a
a
3D
lot,
scan.
or a 3D scan. That was the last thing.
Yep.
And the 3D scan's
Hmm.
pretty cool, although I don't have a lot of experience with that. I'm kind of old school. So um, we cast everything so I can put subtle nuances and stuff into the device that maybe you might not be able to do with some of the other stuff.
I'm
You
actually
can
actually
also
have an
do,
update. I have an update just to tell you. I'm actually
yeah,
doing my 3D scans with my with a camera on my phone. So there's no special thing. If you have one of the latest iPhones, you can scan. There's a couple of apps out there that especially one of my labs uses, where I just literally take out my iPhone, take out the scanning device, I scan it, I hit up, and it's in the cloud, and the lab can get started on it that quick. So
very
things
cool.
are coming fast and changes are occurring fast, and it's really just making it that much easier for the average person to get involved with it.
Yeah. So if you're going to do orthotics, that's going to be a custom device. And then we can go back to a footbed. There's lots of companies that sell off the shelf stuff that's out there that's actually fairly decent. We go into how to, sort of quantify what's decent and what's not. Companies that I think are safe to say, I, I forget the company that you like to use, Scott, but
Soul.
Soul, right? I use Cadence insoles quite a bit. And then there's the Nalero system with Roberta, a friend of ours, which is a
Mhm.
very, very comprehensive system. A little bit more entry cost as far as the over the counter customizable type devices, but definitely much more variety. Like you can get ones that have built in valgus and varus posting, built in first ray cutouts, medial flanges, lateral flanges, that kind of stuff. That's a little bit more upfront cost as far as rather than just taking a regular one and modifying it, but it also takes a lot of the brain out of the equation or makes it somewhat easier for you to just kind of do. I think with minimal tools and some experience, you can make lots of changes fairly easily to we'll call them over-the-counter type devices and make them effect for a large percent of the population. And the people that don't are the ones that you're either going to run a custom on or you're going to send them out to your friend that does customs or something like that.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about, again, why would a clinic, aside from the benefits to the patient, which you and I both wholeheartedly believe in, but in terms of, if you're a business owner, whether a physical therapy clinic or a chiropractor, um, there's a lot of reasons other than direct patient care to start into the orthotic business. There's the added ability to differentiate yourself from your competition. With that, there's an added revenue stream. For me, working for a hospital, obviously that's not my primary role because, again, I'm there to serve my patients. It's just another tool in our toolbox, and it does help with our marketing. But at the end of the day, there is some financial gain in offering another service that otherwise would not be captured by your clinic, whether it be chiropractic or PT or otherwise. So, each clinic is different as to how they set up their markup and how they go about charging, and are they billing insurances. Typically, insurance doesn't cover it, typically. So oftentimes it is an out-of-pocket expense. There are parts of the orthotic process, at least in the physical therapy world, that are billable, like the fitting aspect of it, the evaluation aspect of it, but the actual supply, actually handing them the device, is not. And you can mark that up as much as you see fit. I've seen people charge as little as $125 for them, all the way up to $500, $600, $700 for orthotics. A lot depends on how much modification goes into it and what materials you're using. But there is a significant markup, and there is some money to be made with orthotic therapy if, in fact, you choose to go down that route.
Yes, there's the whole aspect of not just the device, but also the exam, the analysis. And then again, that goes back to creating a niche within your community. How many people are actually doing this? And of the people that are doing it, if there are any, how many are doing it correctly? You see the people at the mall, and this is no knock against places like stores that sell running shoes that do their gait analysis, but they're not, examining a person's foot and taking into account most of the time the anatomical characteristics and things like that, and why they're seeing what they're seeing. A perfect example is somebody that looks like they have a lot of pronation in their midfoot or their rear foot, and they stick them in a motion control shoe. And that can work for some cases. However, if you're a person that pronates a lot like that and they have internal tibial torsion, and you put them in a motion control shoe, you're going to move the knee outside the sagittal plane, and you're going to shred their meniscus over time. So good if you're hooked up with an orthopedic surgeon or something like that, and that's the way you like to practice, but not good for your patients. So having that knowledge base of what's going on sets you apart from the community, and you can charge for that, and whatever you think your time is worth. When a person comes into our office for orthotics or whatever, and they're purchasing orthotics, we include, oftentimes, not always, their gait analysis along with the device, but the device is marked up accordingly for that. As Scott said, there's really not a lot of insurance coverage for that sort of thing. It is all out of pocket, but being out of pocket and being cash a lot of times is really nice, because you don't have to pay your third-party biller or whoever you have doing your billing for you to collect that. It's done. It's basically time of service sort of thing. So there's labs and stuff that we could certainly hook you up with, that we use as far as that do these things that can help you out, just to give you an idea of whatever costs are. Our typical costs on fabrication and having an orthotic made are in the $100 to $150 per pair range. And then we mark those up accordingly from them, depending again upon what time it is, how straightforward it was, what time is involved, not like the time of day, but that kind of stuff. So it can be great, and it's a wonderful way, just like if you sell supplements in your office, or we sell shoes, obviously lots of gait related stuff here, but all of that stuff just goes on top of whatever else that patient is seeing you for. They have to buy it somewhere. You tell them they need a pair of shoes, or they need to buy running shoes, they might as well buy them from you, right? If they need an orthotic, why not get it from your office, where you can help and service that device for them, rather than just, necessarily giving it to them and, having them go out the door, and then it just gets added to their pile of orthotics that didn't work because, you didn't examine them closely, or you didn't build the appropriate kind of device. And not everybody needs an orthotic. So that's part of the evaluation process and determining what works best for that individual patient. And sometimes you'll put people in an over-the-counter device, which is relatively inexpensive. Patient cost on the OTCs we sell here are about $45, $50, which I don't think is excessively expensive. We're still making some profit on that. If we have to do modifications, Depending upon if they're extensive, we may charge $20 or $30 to make the mods. If they're not extensive, then we generally don't charge for that because you're seeing them for other reasons and doing things like that. So the entry point can be relatively easy and not a lot of expenditure. I know that there's some places that sort of do stuff on you only pay for what you order as well. So that's an option too.
I think to get started, bare bones, what you need to know and be able to do when you get started is you got to figure out how you're going to mold the foot, whether it be a foam impression. I'd say the easiest entry point is a foam impression, but I think as time goes on, I think, like I was telling you guys before, I think the scanning, the 3D scanning will be the simplest way. As long as like once you learn how to do it, it's set it and forget it. It's very, very easy. It gets uploaded to the cloud and you're on your way and the lab can get started. You don't have to worry about going to the mailbox. You don't have to worry about shipping issues. You don't have to worry about it getting damaged in the mail with the foam impression boxes. So I think that's a good way to get started. But regardless, you got to have some kind of molding technique to get that mold to the lab. Secondly, what you need to know and understand, and a lot of this is what we really go over in the course, is what do you want to do with that orthotic device? Like you upload the mold of the foot to the lab or you get the foam impression to the lab. They haven't seen that person move, function, what their problems are. You need to tell them what you want to have accomplished. So understanding the components of an orthotic device are critical, and we go over that in detail in our course. As well as, understanding how different materials interact with each other and having a good relationship with the lab. I think from the get-go is an important thing. Like Ivo said, he was business partners with his lab. I've become very, very close with the lab that I work with. I'm one of the few people that when I ask for a device, we have conversations back and forth and we kind of come up with solutions. A lot of places that send my lab orthotics to do, they actually send a video of the patient walking and moving so that the lab comes up with all the decisions that they want to make. I have a lot more control as to what my devices look like based on my knowledge and we'll call it expertise, but it's nothing crazy, guys. It's stuff that we talk about at length, like I said, in our course. And after, the 8 hours of instruction that we have on our videos and such, you'll come out of there with knowing everything you need to know about getting started with picking a device that you want to have accomplished.
All right. I think that says it. I would encourage you to check it out. Watch the trailer again, do a little research, go to our blog. You can read a little bit. We've got some stuff on Instagram that you can look at as well. There'll be more stuff forthcoming. We're actually putting together a course or a lecture that'll be sort of the business of orthotics, talking about the soup to nuts aspect of it. We do cover a fair amount of that as far as different manufacturers and stuff like that in the course, as far as getting started and kind of what you need. Some people don't want to do any kind of hands-on with the orthotic. They want the lab to do everything, which is fine. Mm-hmm. The problem there, of course, is time shipping the device back and forth and things like that. If you have a small lab in your office, we have a lab here. Scott's got a lab where he is. You can make mods relatively quickly for people on the spot. You can charge them for those mods if you want to do that. And you make people happy. And generally, pretty soon you're seeing them and then their family and then all of their friends and then the baseball team and the soccer team mm-hmm. and everybody else, just as far as that goes, because you are or becoming the expert in that area in your community. And we imagine if you're listening to this podcast, then you're pretty much a nerd like we are. And into feet and lower extremity biomechanics.
We're not a nerd, we're geeks.
Nerds, geeks, it's all kind of the same stuff.
Awesome. Well, guys, head over to thegategeeks.com. That's where a lot of this is going to be listed. You can find out all about, like Ivo said, our blogs, our YouTube page. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know what the YouTube page is, Instagram, etc. But there's a lot of information we're putting out there. So hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully we get to see it at one of our courses soon.
Take care, guys.